So this is it, huh, Carano? This is it. This is the day we make our big announcement. Well, big for us, big in our little world, but it's been, almost 2 years for me talking about doing this because, something we have to do. We have to um, kind of build a wall around us, and because we've been under attack for longer than 2 years, for 5 years.
Your entire career, it seems. I mean, I was looking at stuff from early in the 2000s where people were going after you.
It is true. It happened many times, but there was only one group. I don't want to say one man, because that man had help from the Boston Globe, who actually assigned people to help him harass our advertisers. We've certainly gone through this before. Minahan has gone through it before. He took the fight to Murchison in his hometown. And I think it shook him up a little, but he bounced back and continued to harass us, our advertisers, our hosting company, you name it. That's what he does. He's a vile human being who, for some reason, can't seem to move on from us to other people.
He's obsessed.
And we go over this all the time, Minahan and I, when we talk about people who have said much worse. To recap, if you're just tuning in, we got lots of new listeners.
Yep.
I don't want to go over this constantly, but I don't think I've gone over it since you've been on board. What happened?
No? I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
So why don't we do it? Since we're making this big announcement, we're going to locals.com, where we can create our own community. That would be a subscription service, at least, although there is a free tier, so you can join for free or you can pay. We will go over that, but it was about 5 years ago. I think it was a little more, actually, when we had a conversation on the radio. It was Minahan, me, and Gary Tangway, and we talked about a 4-year-old who was transitioning. It was a child in Malden, Mass, I believe. The mother was very proud. The Boston Globe was very proud to celebrate a 4-year-old transitioning. And I don't even remember if it was a boy transitioning to a girl or vice versa. I guess I could look it up. But, we talked about it the way anyone would, said how crazy that is. The kid's four.
Yeah.
I mean, a long way from puberty, a long way from figuring out who he is or she is. But in this current culture, it's celebrated, and it was celebrated by the Globe. And this woman was very proud, and we criticize it, of course. What else are you going to do? That's nuts. I actually got Murchison to admit it was crazy. Admit to my face that he agreed it was crazy, but he didn't like our tone. He didn't like our tone. So he went on the warpath. As if you've been listening to me or to Kirk, you know that he harassed us every single day, all our advertisers, all our bosses, everyone in the company, with emails every single day for 2 years. And Entercom finally gave up, threw up their hands, made a deal with him, said, please leave us alone. We'll get rid of those guys. They did. They moved on. Most of their advertisers moved on, but that was the decision they made. They succumbed. It was a classic cancel culture story. And I haven't really told it. The last time I told the story in detail?
No,
when I was on the Adam Carolla show. I was supposed to be on. It was January before the Super Bowl, and I thought to talk about Brady and all that, but I think Carolla's into the cancel culture and standing up to it. I mean, you could stand up to it all you want. If your bosses don't have your back, you're out of luck. And our bosses did not. They literally made a deal with the man, which is kind of discouraging. You think even if they're going to get rid of us, you don't want to give him the trophy. And
no, that type of power either.
And as we've gone over, I know Kirk has gone over it more than I have. We met with our CEO, and he didn't want to sue the guy. He didn't want to go after him. He just said it wouldn't be a good look to have a big company going on. Instead, they chose to lose $8 million in the 2 years, in my two final years there, because they wouldn't even fight him in terms of going to the advertisers and saying, let's let us tell our side of the story. That was one of the most frustrating parts for us. He would harass an advertiser. He would lie in the emails. We'd see them. I mean, he would literally do things like,
I've seen ones that he pulls stuff out of context.
Everything's out of context, and much of it is just flat out untrue. He would take parody accounts from Twitter of me, like a parody. Like, I don't even know the guy. You. And he'd include it in the email. And say, see what he tweeted. Do you want to be and I'd be like, wait a second. You have to let us clear this up. You have to let us meet with the advertiser, call them. Not once. I mean, we did it on our own a few times, and we talked to people who we knew, But not once did they set up a meeting, a lunch, a phone call so we could tell our side of the story. They just let this lunatic completely intimidate them, cost them millions, and essentially blow up the station.
Oh, it's a shell of its former self.
If you saw the revenue now compared to then, you wouldn't believe it. You'd say that's beyond Murchison's wildest dreams, the destruction he did. And again, it worked, and he still hasn't moved on. He's still harassing us, and this is one thing we can do. And there's nothing he can do about it. I mean, he'll try. He'll try. He'll find a way. He'll start emailing, Dave Rubin at Locals.
Probably who's not going to care.
But
I mean, Dave he fights back against cancel culture. Like
true.
He started Locals to give creators a place where they can do stuff and not be afraid of psychopaths like Bob Murchison. So
and if you want to understand, that's who goes to Locals. There are
Right.
people who've been harassed. If you look at the lineup of people who are there, it's people, like Greg Gutfeld's on there. And I think Tammy Bruce, a lot of people who've been harassed for their politics. Their advertisers have been harassed. For them, it's, Media Matters and Sleeping Giants. These are these groups that go after people they disagree with and try to shut them down. These are anti-American people. These are fascists who don't want to hear you. They don't want to debate you. They don't want a healthy exchange of ideas. They want to shut you down.
Yeah,
and for that reason, Dave Rubin and company created Locals.com. And I kind of knew from the beginning I was headed there. And you did all the work, you did all the research, and you found out, I mean, you had a couple options, but you found out Locals was the best fit for that very reason, correct?
Yeah, so Locals is great in this way. It's kind of like the interface is very similar to other social media platforms that you're used to. And like Gerry said, we'll do a lot of free content there. We're going to really make it kind of our priority to communicate with fans. But the thing that makes it different is we actually own the community. So it can't be taken from us, where we're always subject to that on. I mean, sometimes you say, but not inflammatory stuff, but challenging enough stuff to the elite left that you're always going to be in the crosshairs of them trying to shut you down on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. But in this case, we own this community and they just can't do it. So
I mean, again, he will try, but to understand, and I don't think people quite understand the level of psychosis we're dealing with. To understand, there was a point last winter when January 6th happened, and we talked about it. Obviously said it's a disgrace. I said, put these people in jail who fought with the cops, and it's embarrassing. Obviously, it's the pendulum has swung the other way. When you have trespassers in solitary for 8 months, obviously it's extreme. These are people being persecuted, people being persecuted politically for their political beliefs, for being an enemy of the regime.
Yeah.
We talked about it, and that's pissed off some of the real crazy activists, including my guy, who had somebody literally call our advertisers. We only have 3 or 4. It's a 1-hour podcast. And, some of them are people who've been dealing, like Shea Concrete and DCU. I mean, these are great, great people. If you had any doubt, the people at DCU, the people at Shea are great people because they put up with it or stood up to it. There were a few others back in the day at EEI that stood up to these people, but I heard it. I could play it for you. They had a fake reporter call my few advertisers. I pretend it said he was like mumbled something from the news. I want you to know we're doing a story on how Gerry Callahan is supporting the insurrection or something. And one of our advertisers played it for me, sent it to me. It's amazing. It's not a voice I recognize, but it's a fake reporter. I'll get it to you. We'll play it. We'll put that on Locals. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Put that on Locals. And they asked me, do you know? I said, that's not real. That's not real. It's an attempt to intimidate you. And again, they do it at the highest level. They do it to, Matt Walsh every day, and Ben Shapiro and Dan Bongino and of course, Tucker and Hannity. They get harassed daily. The only difference is if you have a boss with some backbone, a boss who stands by you, you can survive that storm. And we've seen it happen. It happened to us, back in the day when we did have bosses, GMs, program directors with spines. You deal with these people every day. As you said, there's been a few controversies over the years which caused people, there'd be like a little protest outside the station. They would demand something, whatever, sensitivity training, or demand your head. And if you have a good boss, a strong character at the top, they understand that's the price of doing good talk radio. You get people pissed. But now it's so out of control that they think as soon as you say something they don't like, they have the mass email, start bombarding your advertisers, do it every day, follow it up the next day and say, did you get my email? Do you really want to be associated with this show? And we've seen, God knows it's been a theme of this show, cancel culture. We've seen just the gutless way that corporate America has handled these vultures. We've seen people getting fired. The guy in Sacramento getting fired for saying all lives matter. Mike Milbury getting fired for saying nothing. Jeremy Roenick. I mean, it's over and over again. Who did we talk about the other day? Scott Zolak saying something that was perfectly appropriate, saying Cam Newton appeared distracted when he was dancing. And guess what? Cam Newton was distracted. We'll get to that. He was terrible. And they dumped him, but there were people on Twitter, on social media demanding a firing. You know why? Because they've gotten it in the past, because corporate America, particularly these radio companies, TV companies, are so weak. You got to go back and review it at some point to believe it. We will go back and review things like Mike Milbury or Chris Harrison at The Bachelor. People getting fired, not suspended, not sent to sensitivity training, fired for doing absolutely nothing wrong.
And it's
not arguable. You can't say, well, Mike Milbury said, women are a distraction. Mike Milbury said it was something perfectly appropriate. When you're in the bubble because of COVID, there was no kids, there's no wives, no distractions. Yeah. All they could do is focus with their team on hockey and getting ready. Perfectly 100% appropriate. Somebody got upset. The NBC caved, as they often do, and threw him to the wolves. And by the way, this only works one way. This only works when only one side gets canceled. The other side laughs at cancel culture. They fuel it. They believe in it. They like it. If you're on the left, you don't have to worry. There is no Media Matters equivalent on the other side. There is no Bob Murchison on the other side harassing advertisers. There is no Boston Globe. I mean, the Boston Herald, New York Post, they would never, ever assign reporters and editors to harass the advertisers of a competitor. That's unethical. That doesn't stop people at the Boston Globe. That's what they do, unethical. That's their specialty. So they worked with the activists and others to bring down their chief competitor. And at that point, we were. I mean, the radio station was competing not just with the Globe, but with Nesson, with that whole John Henry empire. And they hated us and they wanted to bring us down. And they did. Unfortunately for them, our boss was weak. Our boss was in awe of John Henry. And so he threw us to the wolves. And how's that working out for him so far?
Not very well. No. And the other thing too is it's not enough for these psychos like Bob that people have their own volition. A podcast is opt-in, or even listening to a radio station is opt-in. People can turn the channel or just not download it. That's not good enough. He wants to attack you, wants to put you out of business. He just wants to completely shut you down. And
as I said, my Twitter bio when I got fired was when a conservative hears something he doesn't like on the radio, he changes the station.
It's so simple.
When a liberal hears something they don't like on the radio, they demand the host be fired. And that's okay if you do have, and it used to be different. You'd have to write letters, organize. Now it's just one guy could sit in his underwear and make a mass
snip
email,
audio, snip video,
and absolutely it's totally 100% dishonest, taking things out of context.
Yeah.
I mean, just making everything homophobic, racist, sexist, you name it. I'll give you a quick example. Like I was on the show with Jermaine Wiggins, who I like a lot. We had a good time. We had a good rapport. And we were talking about David Ortiz getting shot in the Dominican.
Yeah.
And he says, people get shot all the time. And I'm arguing this is a kind of an unusual thing. And we were just going back and forth. And I said, Wiggy, who grew up hard in East Boston, talks about it all the time. I said, maybe in your neighborhood, Wiggy, but not in most people's neighborhood. They're not getting shot in the back at an outdoor restaurant. That's kind of unusual. That's it.
Yeah.
Immediately, the advertisers get an email saying, do you want to be associated with this kind of racism? Because I mentioned that
he grew up in a tough neighborhood.
He grew up in a tough neighborhood, which we talked about all the time. And, he's mentioned it. And believe me, you could hear the conversation. If you heard it right now, you would laugh at the idea that someone could take that, twist that, make it seem racist. And then immediately, he knows, the buzzwords, immediately hit up everyone in the company saying, do you want to be associated with this kind of racism, which is absurd. I mean, honestly, if you heard the show for 10 minutes, Wiggy and I got along great, and we had laughs and we had a good time. And that was just part of the conversation. It had nothing to do with race, nothing. And yet, instead of saying, go screw, you're making that up. That's slander. I mean, it's you have a boss say, we don't want to be associated, with that kind of racism. What kind of race? I mean, it's just madness. That's what it was on a daily basis, and it still is, because apparently there's no other person out there, no other radio host or podcast host that has upset this person, which is amazing because I listen to lots of right-wing podcasts, and
they say more inflammatory stuff.
They say more. You want the MMA fighter, this big badass special forces guy who transitioned, dyed his hair pink, and went from a male MMA fighter to a female, and now he's kicking ass and saying this is for trans rights. It's insane. Oh no,
you can't.
It's wonderful. It's touching. I'm sure the general public, particularly our audience, they're 100% supportive of this lovely lady in MMA beating up biological women, and we're supposed to applaud that, because if you don't, that you're going to have an angry mob after you. And it's one of the best examples, because obviously they're very much in the minority. Most people don't want to see 4-year-olds transition, or big bad ass MMA fighters transition and start beating up biological women. Most people, but they are vocal and they are relentless, and they don't care that it's a fringe viewpoint. And my view was perfectly appropriate. Like most people think it's crazy, including the guy who came after us, who admitted off the record that he thought it was crazy too for a 4-year-old to transition. Of course it's crazy.
And the thing is for us, so local advertisers who know Gerry and know his heart have no problem. Like most of them would have no problem with saying, go screw. But if they know Gerry, but these national advertisers who typically advertise on podcasts, they don't know Gerry. So if they're getting constant barrage of emails, they just see it and they're like, it's just not worth our time to even look at it. And so you get that. So it shuts down some of our options. I look at this podcast as a startup, and where, as a startup, you have to decide where can we get revenue from. So one of the ways we could do is with local advertisers, but also another way is through the subscription on locals.com. So
right. And we're going to continue to have some advertisers who understand that they will be harassed and they are okay with it, or some of them actually look forward to it. Some of the people you talk to, I'm ready to,
push back. Yeah, they're sick of it
push
too.
Push back, fight back, punch back. That's what it's all about.
Anybody who has a brain and is aware of what's going on wants to push back. I mean, this is frightening, collectivism, terrible movement in the United States right now that social media is allowing to happen, where you have one group.
Social media allowing it. Social media is engineering it.
But I also love social media in some ways too.
It's frightening.
Oh, but those companies are. You're absolutely right.
Big media, big tech.
Yeah.
They're complicit in this. They're all on the same team. It's amazing. This one team that includes the entire Washington establishment, the House, the Senate, the President. It includes academia. It includes the media, the mainstream media, all the old newspaper, the Washington Post, New York Times, includes them all, and includes Hollywood, includes Silicon Valley. All these powers, all working in concert to crush the voices they don't like, to crush the voice of dissent. It is a frightening time in America. I think you're absolutely right. I think more people are finding out every day how scary it is. Again, it only works one way, but I always say this, and when you and I talk about it, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. When you see something like the Chris Harrison thing, and maybe it's not a great example because no one cares about him. He's made a lot of money.
Yeah, but that's an example of it happened. What he said there was nothing wrong with these. Nothing at all.
Nothing. It's not even debatable. You can't come on here and debate me and say when Mike Milbury said, you limit the distractions. There's no women for the hockey players or kids or pets or they're all. It's kind of the whole point of being in the bubble. That's why some NFL teams go to training camp, hundreds of miles away, to eliminate distractions. What he said was perfectly appropriate. I'm glad he didn't. He might have apologized, but he's since, and we're going to get him on. We're going to get him on. We actually get him on one of our first locals shows, because he says, I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to allow them to cancel me. And there's really you don't have a choice. I mean, you could stand by your words, as well you should. But when you work for a gutless corporation or gutless people like NBC, they're going to throw you to the wolves for a couple reasons. They don't want to bother. They see those words, those radioactive words. Oh, sexist. He said women, and they just say you're not that important. I mean, if you're a good liberal, if you're Brian Williams, you get caught lying, or Kevin Cullen, they have you get another chance or 2 or 10. If you're someone like Mike Milbury, they just say, or Don Cherry's another example.
Yeah.
Just throw them to the wolves and be done with it. Wash your hands, and we'll get someone else. That they're not that important. But again, the Grant Napier, the announcer who said all lives matter and got fired, got fired for saying, or Jeremy Roque, who joked about having, a threesome with his good friend and his wife because they're both beautiful women and they're best friends, and just joked about it on a podcast, on a Barstool podcast, and got fired.
Yeah.
I mean, those are scary things. Again, only works one way. And there are ways to fight back. There are certainly ways. And if you have, like, I often hear people in radio or right-wing podcasts say that, they'll never cancel me because they work for someone like whatever, Daily Wire or Barstool.
Well, Barstool's big enough, yeah.
That will back them. And they just will back them. They get harassed every day.
Yeah.
The salespeople or Erica Nardini or Portnoy get harassed. It's part of the job. I used to say, a general manager on a talk radio station, part of the job is being that
buffer between,
right, that firewall. So then when these lunatics come after you, and they will more so than ever, because what they're doing is working. I mean, they have literally, fueled this effort by giving in, by throwing up their arms and sacrificing their people, so that it incentivizes these activists, and they just keep coming. And unless you have someone that tells them to screw, hangs up the phone, deletes the email, and just moves on, you're out of luck, because there's a lot of cowards out there. There's a lot of spineless people who, if they lean that way, as the famous quote is from our boss about Murchison, is, he's just trying to make the world a better place.
How is not having the conversation making the world a better place?
I was standing right there. I looked in disbelief. That is 100% accurate. I could tell you where we were when I was there. It was 100. The guy who'd lost $8 million in 2 years said he's trying to make the world a better place, because he's a good liberal, and he thinks that if it's transgender activists working with the Globe, boy, they might have and I just looked and said, you've lost millions. He's lying. He doesn't, the truth doesn't matter to him. The Globe doesn't care about ethics. You got to fight back, and he just wouldn't. And so we're fighting back, Carano. That's the bottom line.
So just to give more info about this locals thing. So I put there's an announcement on Twitter and Facebook. I think that's probably already gone out, but it's the GerryCallahanShow.locals.com, or you can just go to locals.com and just search Gerry Callahan or Gerry Callahan Show, and you'll find it. So like Gerry said earlier, we will have a lot of content there that you wouldn't normally see on places like Twitter and Facebook. We're really going to make that the priority. We want that. It's sort of like a Facebook group in a way, because there can be a lot of interaction between the show and Gerry and fans there. So you'll get more interaction, and you'll get stuff on locals that you won't normally see in other places. That's all for free. Just go there. We want you there because it's, like I said, we own that community, so it can't be taken from us. Something like can happen in Twitter, Facebook. You all see we're getting warnings on our posts. We're shadow banned definitely on Twitter. There's no reason why we shouldn't have more Twitter followers. And it's just because the elite doesn't want us to. But hold on, I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So everything, all that stuff is for free. It's actually, the app is super slick. Like, I really like using the locals app. They've done a great job using it. So I'll be interacting from there a lot as well. So that's all for free. But the big offer is, if you decide to support the show financially for $6 a month, and you get 2 months off if you subscribe for the year. So $6 a month, and we'll give you an extra show for free every week. So that'll be our Friday show, and that'll happen exclusively on locals. So that's the thing. And then also for subscribers, where you'll have first dibs on some other offers. We're going to do some things in the future that you'll have first dibs on as well. But anyway, so that's the thing. It's like we're going right to the fans. That's one thing you can do in this whole crazy cancel culture world is you can go right to the fans and say, hey, if you support Gerry and you support the show and you want us to keep doing what we're doing, well then, help us do it. Help us stay in the fight by supporting us financially. So that's the thing that we can do, because Bob can't touch that. Psycho Bob can't touch
me.
It is MC Hammer there.
And as we pointed out, Dave Rubin created this site, this platform, for this very reason. Can you find some of the people who are on there?
Oh yeah, Dave. So as you said, Dave Rubin, Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator, Michael Malice, the big libertarian guy that I follow, that's on there. Tulsi Gabbard's on there.
True. Tulsi had a ballsy tweet over the weekend. We can get to that, but and I mentioned Gutfeld. A few people have bailed pretty vocally on Twitter or Facebook and said, "Screw them, I'm over here." Gutfeld was one. Say, "Follow me over here." But I'm so illiterate. I'm trying to find out who I'm following.
Bridget Fettisy's there. She's a podcaster that I listen to. Dr. Drew's there. I said Tulsi already. Tons of people. Andy No, I know he's a big favorite of yours, right? He really pushes
Absolutely.
back
He's
on
a great
cancel culture
journalist,
stuff.
one of the only journalists in America. But yeah, you can see it's, as you said, and you're much more tech savvy than I. That's for sure. You said it's pretty slick, pretty well done.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, like, you basically can choose the communities you want to be involved in. So you want to be in the Gerry Callahan Show community, you choose that. And if you select it and you're seeing all the Gerry Callahan Show stuff, it's kind of like a Facebook group in that way. And then you choose other creators who are on locals and you can be in their community as well. And most of them, I think maybe all of them I've seen, do have free content there and also subscription-based content. So you can really choose how you want to do it. But I like it. It's super slick.
Excellent. So check it out. Check us out on locals.com. There's a couple of announcements with more details out there on Twitter, on Facebook. Do you have to follow the show account on Twitter to get your video that you made?
Oh, yeah. If you want to see it, you should.
I'll be retweeting it.
Yeah, I'll retweet it too. So right, we did that tweet out already. Yeah. So like the announcement went out on Twitter. There's going to be some other content, kind of explaining locals a little bit more on Twitter and on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok today and throughout the week.
Excellent. Well, good job by you. That's kind of been Carano's job. That's why you're here. And, there's not. I can't think of any other reason. So anyway,
good on air,
so
good
far,
looking,
so
intelligent,
far, so good. And you did a really funny video.
I said don't announce it, and then you just do it anyway.
Why not?
Well, there'll be a video today. You'll see.
Don't even look for it. It's funny.
We don't even.
I'm giving you credit. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I mean, you were worried that I wouldn't like it. It was funny.
I was, yeah.
It was funny as hell. It was goofy. I mean, it was well done. It's been a while.
I'm cutting this part out of the show, by the way.
It's been a while since I've had a producer who could be that creative. So I'll give you credit.
Thank you.
You're dope, but that was well done. Well done. All right. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
There's if you're on social media, you could go to anywhere. And if you follow me, the show, Matt, whatever, and there's all kinds of details if you want to know more. People are the commenters all saying asking questions like Q&A. They're looking for
they're just asking for the link to
FAQs.
locals, which I put in there, and just commenting around
locals.com. Not very complicated.
No, not at all.
All right, let's go to the I don't know where else to go but talk about our president, because I still find it mind-boggling. As I tweeted on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, if you're president of the United States, if you're the leader of the free world, this is a good opportunity. I mean, you just have to stand there for 20 minutes, read the teleprompter. The expectations for the current buffoon in the Oval Office are so low. Again, if you don't see a big wet urine stain in his pants or his teeth don't fall out, everyone, particularly in the corporate media, would stand and applaud. They would say, great job, inspiring, unifying. You really have to be a mess. And the people around you have to know you're a mess to take a pass on speaking at the 20th anniversary, on the 20th anniversary of the worst attack on our country's history. It was a solemn occasion, but at the same time, you could say it is unifying and it's a patriotic moment. Even if you're a hardcore liberal like Biden, surrounded by people, who get offended when they see the American flag, you have a great opportunity, especially if you're a cynical politician, because the language almost, writes itself, that you stand before everyone, you pay homage to the heroes, the frontline workers, the soldiers, the Navy SEALs who took out bin Laden. I mean, it's just a slam dunk. It's a layup, even for an incoherent buffoon like Joe Biden. He took a pass. How bad does it have to be to take a pass? Trump made a speech at Shanks. Bush was at Shanksville too, right? George W. Bush. Trump made a speech and talked to first responders. Bush made a speech, and we can get to that. I'm more disappointed in George W. Bush than I am in any politician I ever supported. Put it that way, including Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney, we all know, is just a fraud. George W. Bush was supported wholeheartedly by the people he compared to the Taliban the other day. Essentially what he did, compared the Taliban to domestic terrorists like those ones on January 6th. That is nothing but throwing a bone to MSNBC and CNN and the hardcore liberals out there who hate MAGA people and want someone like Bush to come over to their side. Well, he did. And people like me, the millions who supported him, voted for him twice. I'm disgusted. As Matt Taibbi, who's I used to hate, now I like. He's kind of one of those guys like Glenn Greenwald, former hardcore lefty, but is very wary of the surveillance state and the power of the deep state. He pointed out that this guy who started 2 wars, that droned families, that imprisoned people, that tortured people, he's concerned about civility. And George W. very concerned about civility. But I give him credit. At least he stood up and gave a speech. It is amazing that the president didn't give a speech. And I guess when he got cornered by somebody, I don't even know who had the microphone.
I don't know.
We got a sense of why. Because maybe it's the occasion. It's such a big occasion. So many, such pomp and circumstance, and bands playing and bagpipes. And there's and the Clintons over here and the Obamas over there. Maybe the moment was too big for him. Or maybe he was ashamed that the terrible job he did withdrawing from Afghanistan and getting 13 people killed. But he decided not to stand up there and read the teleprompter on an absolutely historic day. That is, I guess it's a sign that it's just weak. But that is around the world. People must have been going. I mean, presidents and prime ministers spoke all over the world about 9/11. They played the national anthem at the Royal Palace or whatever, what do they call it? Buckminster. What's the palace?
Is it Buckingham?
Buckingham Palace. Yeah, I hate the whole royal family.
Oh, me neither. I mean,
they paid, they honored the United States on this occasion. Anyway, the president gets cornered, gets asked about whatever his feelings, and the train of thought just went off the tracks. How long is this cut? It's only like 30 seconds.
Yes, it's very short.
And he mentions fighting Trump. Then he mentions, it just goes back and forth talking about just dumb stuff. I think he talked, whatever. We'll play it, and you can decide whether this man is lucid enough to deliver a speech. Can you play it?
Yeah.
That, what do you want to do with Biden? I want to box him. I should be so lucky. But it is the kinds of things, or, stuff that is coming out of Florida. Stuff that's coming out of, Robert E. Lee had been in Afghanistan. You'd have won. No, anyway.
Robert, I mean, things just pop into his brain, and obviously it's kind of decaying, and they just come out. First of all, he's wearing a black mask and sunglasses. I don't know if you watched a lot of football this weekend.
I watched some, yeah.
There was a million college games, banged out stadiums. Many of them chanted, F Joe Biden again. And then there was a full slate in the NFL, full stadiums everywhere. There was TV people and referees and players and coaches unmasked. America was unmasked this weekend, except our president outdoors with Clinton and Obama. They all had the same mask. They all covered their faces. He covered his eyes and his face. And he's asked about the occasion, and he talks about Trump. Trump joked that someone asked Trump whether he would, if he could choose one person to box. And he joked about boxing Biden, no big deal, but it bothered him. And then he rambles on, and things coming out of Florida. What's coming out of Florida?
I have no idea. I guess he's talking about DeSantis, but I don't know.
And then he says, if Robert E. Lee had been in Afghanistan, you would have won. Can I just say that I follow the news pretty closely? Nobody has said that. He just made, I understand if people say you had better generals, you had terrible generals, you had Milley and Austin, these losers, but no one said if you had Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee's famous for losing a war too.
Were you talking about the Civil War general?
Yes.
That's who he's talking about?
Yes. Well, so you think he's talking about?
Well, I thought maybe you knew a more recent Robert E. Lee.
By the way, to go quickly back to cancel culture, yeah. I'm always trying to rank the worst cancels of cancel culture, and that has to be near the top. The announcer, an ESPN play-by-play announcer named Robert Lee, was taken off the game at Virginia, at Charlottesville, because of his name. And I believe Robert E. Lee, you can look this up, I believe he's Asian, but he was taken off the game because of his name. This is the kind of lunatics we're dealing with. Person that would say, I don't think it's appropriate. And by the way, ESPN giving in to the person who says,
are you kidding me?
Never saw that one?
No.
That's one of the great ones. Yeah, he was taken off the game. I don't think he was fired for having the wrong name, but isn't that bizarre?
What?
That someone in the corporate office in Bristol, Connecticut said, we shouldn't have Robert. I don't even think his middle name's E, is it?
No, it's just Robert Lee.
Robert Lee. Taken off the
What?
game. And if you see a picture, he couldn't do a game at Charlottesville because, his name. That's amazing. It's embarrassing. But that's the kind of thinking you have at ESPN now, which is going to use the Stephen A. Smith show to just show how woke they are. Have one young black person or Asian or whatever. They're going to use that, as Bobby Burke pointed out, as kind of their own affirmative action slot. All the people arguing with Stephen A. are going to be people he chooses, friends of his, who check some kind of box. That's what that show has turned into. That's what that network's turned into. But you sidetracked me on that.
I did.
Biden's, how long was that speech? 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Totally incoherent as usual, which I guess is better than his speech from Thursday. And we didn't have a show yet for Friday, so we haven't talked about this. But the Thursday speech was frightening. It was insane. And I don't know if people appreciate just how insane, where he literally says, this is not about freedom. It's not about freedom of choice. Everything, it's America you're talking about. Yeah, everything is about freedom at some level. And he says, we're going to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. That's what he said.
The vaccine was supposed to do that.
Sorry, but that's what a vaccine is for. The people who you're protecting have already got protection. They had it injected into them. There's virtually no one vaccinated who's dying. No one vaccinated is being hospitalized. The people dying are the unvaccinated because of people like you, Joe Biden, people they don't trust. And Turtle Boy said this, and so did a few other people on social media, said this made them less likely, less inclined to get the vaccine because Biden was so arrogant, saying our patience is wearing thin. Can I remind you that it wasn't that long ago that Joe Biden said he wouldn't trust a vaccine developed by Operation Warp Speed because of Trump? Kamala Harris, same thing. These are the same people threatening your livelihood, saying we're going to take your job away. Your kids aren't going to have food on the table or shoes on their feet because you won't submit. Doesn't matter if they've already had COVID, if they have natural immunity. Doesn't matter if, there's a woman, Allison something Williams, who's Allison. I don't know. You can look it up at ESPN as a sideline reporter. She's politely, quietly stepped down, taken a leave of absence because she's taken fertility drugs, trying to get pregnant, and her doctor told her she shouldn't get vaccinated, so she won't. So ESPN won't allow her to work games, and I assume she'll be fired because ESPN has more than 100 employees. I feel bad for the people, the new guys at companies with 120 people or 110 people, because aren't they just going to fire?
Yeah.
Get down to 97
Yep.
and say, we're good. Rather, if you have a bunch of good people, and I was talking to a friend of mine in construction this weekend, and he said the people in our business are not inclined to go get vaccinated. It's just not the way of thinking. These are tough guys and hardworking guys, and they just say, I don't need it. And they put their head down and go to work. Well, you're going to get fired if that company has more than 100 people, because the federal government, by decree, the president, by decree, has declared you unhealthy. You're filthy. You're dirty. You're marginalized. It's your fault. It's a lie that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It is not. They're getting much higher numbers this year than last. They're not dying, not going to the hospital, but they're getting COVID. The vaccinated people, as we know, we see it every weekend. Athletes and politicians and media people getting it who've already had it. It's mild. It's not killing them, but they're getting it. And it's not just because the unvaccinated. That speech was disturbing. I know we don't expect much from Joe, but he was angry. He was scolding people. Again, this is a guy who said he wouldn't trust the vaccine less than a year. That would be about 8 months ago. Wouldn't trust it. And now if you don't trust it, if you just want a little more time, if you want a little more data, you're a bad person, and he will fire you. He's like one of those lords in Scotland in Braveheart. They will kick you off your land and starve your family if you don't submit. That's the declaration from the Oval Office. And I don't know, did you watch the whole thing? Because he was angry.
I didn't watch the whole thing. No.
He was angry. He was scolding people. He had that old angry man face. And it was disturbing. Of course, took no questions because he never does, and made stuff up about how it was all the fault of the unvaccinated. as we talked about on Thursday with Turtle Boy, they have taken a group, pitted another group against them. It's the majority against the minority. And if you were wondering why, Turtle Boy tweeted this or retweeted this poll, and they took polls in all the swing states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, and do you support a vaccine mandate or not? And the yes, support the mandate won overwhelmingly in all these swing states, which is kind of scary. I think people are still scared. I bet you the numbers among women are really high about people who want a vaccine mandate. They're like Joe Biden. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about freedom of choice. It's not my choice, my body. No, they want everyone to get the jab. And the numbers, and this is what Biden's looking at. This is why he gave this speech. This is why he came down so strongly in the favor of a mandate when a couple of months ago, hell, it was like a month ago, Jen Psaki said there'd be no mandate.
Yeah.
Now there is, because they stuck their fingers to the wind and they took polls in all these swing states and they decided it works politically. That's the only reason you saw the grumpy old man there on Thursday threatening everybody's livelihood who works for a big company. And immediately you saw the hypocrisy. The post office is exempt. 640,000 people who work for the post office. And I guess I could see why, because they don't have a lot of, interaction with the public.
They're outside most of the time.
They're touching people. They exempted.
You're saying that? Oh, they are. Oh, well, yeah. I guess they do touch. I was thinking more they're outside.
They go door to door.
I suppose, yeah. But then they just.
I know, but you could say that about. There are lots of federal employees who don't interact with anyone.
Well,
ever.
That's true too.
Sit in a little cubicle or whatever.
Or they can work from home.
How about federal employees who work like the grounds crew, to Parks and Recreation?
Yeah.
Maintaining parks. They have to be vaccinated or they're fired. But the post office is exempt, and you know who else is exempt? Congress. Congress is exempt. So they make this rule. They say it's for public health. They say it's all about keeping you healthy and alive. And then they say, we don't want to follow that dumb rule. Because as we know, we've gone over this before, when you look at the breakdown of people, the level of vaccination, it's very high in the unvaccinated, very high in the African-American community. And you know who else is reluctant to get? PhDs. The education level, the one with the biggest disparity between vaccinated and unvaccinated are PhDs. There are smart people who are waiting, who are reluctant, who are young, who are healthy, who don't want this. And the Biden regime is threatening them with their jobs. And there's going to be a lot of people who get the injection just to keep their job, but there's going to be a lot of people who don't. And we've already heard there's one hospital, I forget where, in the Midwest, where they can't deliver babies. They're closing their maternity ward or whatever because so many nurses have left because they don't want the vaccination. And they just said, I guess I'll find something else to do or work somewhere else where they allow unvaccinated people to work as nurses. And a lot of the nurses, a lot of the front line, they've already had it. They've had COVID. They've had the test. They know their immunity is stronger than it would be if they got vaccinated. They don't see the need. The most amazing thing about Biden's speech on Thursday and the ensuing coverage from all his supporters in the media is how little they mention the natural immunity and the effects that having COVID has on you, protects you. It's a fact, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to mention natural immunity. That should tell you something. That's
a hospital in New York State, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, but I'm no PhD, Jerry. But to me, I'm a reasonably smart guy. To me, like, the administration has just not made the case. No one has made the case yet of why someone who is under, say, 60 years old needs to get the vaccine. No one's really made that case.
I would say anyone in any vulnerable any high-risk category,
exactly.
Older folks, right. Obese people who've had illnesses of compromised immunity, they should be at the front of the line. In fact, they are, for the most part. You see, Charlie Baker tweeted this the other day. Massachusetts seniors are 99% vaccinated.
There you go.
That's a good thing. That's
right.
The first time I've said something good about Charlie Baker in a long time. Good. You should take a bow. That's what it's all about. That's what Ron DeSantis did early on. That is not what Andrew Cuomo did or Phil Murphy did. They left the vulnerable elderly population. They put them at risk. They got them killed in the case of New York State. But there has to be room for debate with Joe Biden and with his supporters. There's no room for. They want to shut they don't want them to be allowed to travel. They shouldn't go on airplanes. I mean, that crazy, what's her name? Wen, the doctor from CNN.
Dr. Wen.
She smiles and she says some of the most evil stuff. She smiles. She used to run Planned Parenthood, so she got a dark heart. And she says just crazy stuff like, this doesn't go far enough. We should stop interstate travel by people who are unvaccinated. So again, like this reporter at ESPN or Turtle Boy or someone, who's a pregnant woman.
Allison Williams is correct, by the way. That's her name.
Then they can't cross state lines, according to the doctor, the official doctor of CNN, this crazy woman. And I'm thinking, wait a second, that's a constitutional right. You can go to the next state. You can't stop me because of my medical choices. That's madness. The number of people who agree, who understand that it's total madness, it concerns me. How many people think, oh yeah, watch her some night, or watch, this Jonathan Capehart, or one of these crazy lunatics on left. They don't mind at all sounding totally totalitarian. It's like the coverage of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I was running. I was getting tired retweeting the lunatics who compared it to January 6th. I mean, literally, they're comparing, and Bush, implied this, which is why so many people are disgusted with it. But a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people in the media said, yeah, it's kind of like January 6th. Again, we'll go over the numbers quickly. On 9/11, 2,977 innocent people killed at the towers and at the Pentagon and Shanksville. January 6th, one person killed, a unarmed protester, Ashley Babbitt, by a cop. I don't think you can compare something that happened where 3,000 people died to something where nobody was killed.
But it's our symbols.
Oh,
that's why.
Symbols. I see. Symbols. Got your symbols. What about when all those crazy Kavanaugh protesters barged into the Senate during a hearing? Was that like 9/11?
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
No, okay, we'll keep that down. But it was crazy. Bush embarrassed himself, not as bad as Biden embarrassed himself, but it is interesting that what Joe Biden wanted was a photo op, was a ceremonial kind of photo op, a good optic for 9/11. What did he get? He got this disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, 13 service people killed, 140-something civilians. And our last act, and the New York Times had to actually report this, our last act in Afghanistan, they lit up a family of 10, including a guy, the father who assisted us in their war effort, and 7 children, I believe. Joe Biden blew up 7 children with a drone. That was the last thing we did in Afghanistan before leaving the Taliban with 85 billion U.S. weaponry and pulling out. But
Glenn Greenwald nails Joe Biden on that too. Is that Joe Biden just didn't want to wait for confirmation that this was a bad person. He just didn't want to appear weak so soon after the bombs that killed the American service people.
Right, he wanted an optic. He wanted a photo op, and he got it by lighting up a family of 10, including kids, a bunch of kids. Can you imagine if that's Donald J. Trump and he just wanted a photo op? What I got to put that on a list. We've kept track of impeachable offenses from Joe Biden. I think we're up into like triple figures right now. And there won't be hearings. To people like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi will write about it. The New York Times reluctantly had to admit it. But they lied initially. Milley lied. He knew he killed civilians. He lied and said it was, a target.
Said it was an explosion, which there wasn't.
Oh yeah, they said the reason there was an explosion is because the car was filled with explosives. If it was filled with water, there's video of them putting water tanks in the trunk full of water and children playing nearby, and that's what Milley and Austin and Joe Biden wanted as the famous final scene as we pull out of Afghanistan. Was, oh, look, we took out a couple of ISIS guys. No, they took out a bunch of kids. And I remember when that used to really upset, left-wing Congress people, killing a bunch of kids. You think someone like Ilhan Omar or AOC, who cared about marginalized people, cared about kids, would have something to say about this. But the silence is deafening. All right, we will move on.
Do you want to hit Shea?
Yes, we'll do Shea. Shea's, of course, one of the great companies, great people who are loyal and strong and have a spine, and we appreciate it. I hope everybody out there appreciates what companies like Shea and DCU and others have done. They've stood strong when others have run like rats, jumped like rats. But these guys, they're great. They're great. Let me tell you about Shea. We got to get to the Patriots, Dolphins, the NFL in general. It was a great football weekend. I love these scenes of big crowds swaying and singing and saving cats with the American flag. That was pretty wild. That video is while the cat fell. I forget which game was it. And people had an American flag, and they used it like as to catch the cat, and the cat walked away happily.
I was so afraid because you didn't see them with the flag off screen. All the camera that I saw was focused on this poor cat who's hanging on with like one paw. I was like, oh, there's certain doom for this cat.
But can't cats fall from anything and live and just land on their feet?
Wow, how that was like 40 feet. It was so high.
I thought they could fall from a skyscraper and land on their feet.
No.
But they saved it. It walked away without a scratch. Literally, it was great. But these scenes are great. It feels like, as we said last week, football fans are leading us out of this Biden malaise, about this dark period. I mean, the Biden administration will fight it because they want this thing to last. They want misery. They want to have housewives in the suburbs to feel like Joe Biden is there to save us from this awful plague. And so they need to keep the misery going, and football fans fight it. They are defiant every week. They go out, they have a great time. They don't wear masks. They don't socially distance. They go out and live their lives. And if there's one thing the Biden people hate, is when people go out and live their lives and enjoy their lives. And that's what they did this weekend. I think the fans in New England and Foxborough, they're obviously disappointed to lose at home when they were favored and lose at home to the rival Dolphins. But the good news far outweighed the bad in Foxborough. I'm telling you, we all know that this day and age, unlike the olden days where, running backs won MVPs or running backs went first in the draft, the game is all about the quarterback now, the quarterback and the coach. And if you have a quarterback, you can win, as we saw for 20 years with Brady. If you don't, you spend all your time and energy trying to get a quarterback, because playing games without one is a waste of time. Doesn't matter how good your defense is or how good your running game is. You need a quarterback. Well, guess what, Patriot fans? You got one. Yes, I'm declaring after one game, after 60 minutes, after one loss, that the Patriots are all set at quarterback, at least until Mac Jones gets hurt. Here's why the whole preseason competition, where all they talked about on Talk Sports radios and all they tweeted about was Cam versus Mac. Here's why that was always a joke. Because the guy we saw yesterday, number 10 for New England, is 1,000 times better than Cam Newton was last year. Cam Newton was among the worst. Somebody ranked him the other day, the quarterbacks, and they ranked Cam Newton like 43rd. There's only 32 teams. He's 43rd in the quarterbacks, best to worst. He was terrible. He had 8 touchdown passes, 11 picks. He won 7 games. I think he went 7-8. Yes,
he did impact the ball though. I mean, he ran the ball. He got running touchdowns.
Fumbled a game away. By the way, 0 turnovers from Mac Jones.
Not
0.
Not the case for the rest of the offense.
No, his running backs put the ball on the ground. They dominated statistically. More yards, time of possession, turnovers, and lost. It was a strange loss, but it was a good loss because this kid is going to be good. He does everything better than Cam Newton, and he looks, I don't want to say like Brady, he just looks like a guy who knows what he's doing. I always say there's 3 things. You have to be a good decision maker, you have to be an accurate thrower, and you have to have poise under pressure. That's what he was yesterday. They had people around his ankles. Hell, Landon Roberts got a penalty for tackling him at the knees, which seemed kind of ridiculous, but that's the rule. He had people around him, breathing on him, pushing on him. He stepped up in the pocket. He showed great poise. He made a couple of check down throws that were more impressive to me than throwing 50 yards down the field. He made a quick decision, boom, boom, found James White or found his tight ends. He's got 2 new tight ends. He's got a great pass catching running back. He's got a better team than Cam Newton had last year, but he's also got what it takes. I'm just going to say it. He's got a certain flair. He's got a certain what you'd call duende, where he knows what the hell he's doing.
That pass to White down the sideline, it was it was further down the field. That was really impressive. I think that was his best throw of the day.
These were the last 2 starting quarterbacks for Alabama going head to head, and the new guy who played his first game was head and shoulders better than the other guy, Tua. Tua won. Tua was mediocre at best. If I'm giving out grades, I give Mac Jones an A-, and I give Tua about a C+. Mac Jones was terrific. I mean, there was I listed a bunch of plays where he was, 3rd down in the 4th quarter under pressure. He found Jacoby Meyer right on the numbers. I mean, he made a bunch of clutch throws, which doesn't seem possible when you lose the game at home when you're favored, but he did. And I think every Patriot fan, football fan, should look forward to seeing him next week and the week after. This was his first game with a whole new cast, a bunch of new players, new tight ends. And he didn't want the ball after throwing his first touchdown pass, which was pretty cool.
It was classy, yeah.
There will be many more. Hell, there might even be a pick in there somewhere. But he just looks like there's an intangible. Obviously, guys have strong arms, and that helps guys like, Jacoby. Oh, no, what was his name? Jamarcus Russell was the first pick in the draft. Big guy, great arm, was terrible. It takes more than that. It takes this intangible, this leadership quality, this sense of keeping you cool when all the others are losing theirs. That's what he had. And I tweeted about it, and a few people were like, oh, it's only one game. Yeah, well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this guy's going to be a good NFL quarterback after one game. He reminds me of these other young studs like Joe Burrow. They're ready. They play big games in college. They play 7-on-7 in Texas or down south in Louisiana or Alabama for years and years. They're just much more ready than quarterbacks used to be. And this kid's ready. He's 23. He played, had a spectacular year last year at Alabama. I think 45 touchdown passes or 44 something and 4 picks at Alabama. This is not playing at, Fitchburg State. This is playing at Alabama, and he was terrific. That's a good way to get ready for the NFL. By the way, did you notice how many Alabama guys, every time a guy made a play for either team that chose college, Alabama, the 2 quarterbacks, the running back, everyone from Alabama. A couple more quick thoughts on that game. Trent Green is a terrible color analyst. I'm sure he's a smart guy. I tried to track. I get caught up sometimes in color analysts and play-by-play guys. Kevin Harlan's good. He's got passion, but Trent Green is just one cliche after another. I think it was the first 3 minutes of the game, he said the words "establish the run" like 5 times. He's terrible. And I think, if the Patriots win, you get better announcers. If you lose, you get the guys at the end of the bench. Yeah. They may be heading for some of the B team. Didn't ruin my experience, my enjoyment of watching the game. He doesn't get in the way. He just strings cliches together and says nothing, which is amazing. When you play quarterback in the NFL, you should have more to offer. I don't want to say you have to be Tony Romo. You should be better than Trent Green. He was terrible.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Oh, Christ. Now you sound like the certain radio station on Monday mornings. It is what it is. Oh, isn't that great? What Coach just said? Yeah, Coach just said.
I told you that was abysmal listening to talk to Belichick on EEI today. It was they ask no questions. In fact, they answer their own questions.
There's nothing
in their question.
I mean, I'm not defending them. I'm sure it's terrible, but there's nothing you can do. He doesn't like the media. He doesn't want to talk to the media.
Yeah, sure.
Even if there's former players there, once in a while, he'll feel comfortable. For the most part, particularly on a Monday morning after a loss, you're not going to get, we were lucky when we were on the station for 19 years. We had the quarterback and they had the coach, and wasn't a Monday went by where I wasn't grateful. But what was Mac Jones had a 102 rating, no picks, 1 touchdown, which he didn't want the ball because, there's going to be many more. Tua stinks. I shouldn't say stinks. Tua not good, not as good, not nearly as good. The 4 starting rookie quarterbacks, I believe it was 4. Mac Jones had the best day. He's going to have many, many more. He's got good coaching. He's got good tight ends. He's got a good running back. He's got what he needs around him. I'm not saying he's going to be Brady. Of course not. But he's going to be, if he's their quarterback for 10 years, they're going to go to the playoffs, 7, 8 times. They're going to have a chance to win, and that's what you need. And by the way, they waited till he fell to them at 15. San Francisco traded up, gave up a whole bunch of stuff, and what they got is a backup quarterback in Trey Lance. He might be good too, but when you do that, you expect the guy to come in and just light the world on fire. That's not quite what Mac Jones did, but he will. He's going to be good. He's going to be real good. And you know what? That's what you do. Watching quarterbacks is the number one attraction in sports. Sports fans watch quarterbacks. They talk about quarterbacks. They dissect the quarterback play. It's simple. It's easy. You don't have to look at the linemen and figure out, the coverages. You just watch the quarterback. And you know what you base your judging, your opinion on? The intangibles. It's not, look how much he had 300 passing. He looked cool. He looked comfortable. He looked poised. You just felt good if you're a Patriots fan about watching this guy. But all right, that's it for my NFL analysis. I want to commend our guy Bobby Burek for Outkick, who wrote The reason Max Kellerman is out on First Take was because Stephen A. hates him and wanted him out, and Stephen A. gets what he wants. He has friends in management. They forced. Stephen A. went on a radio show and admitted he didn't like Max and tried to get rid of him for a long time. I guess I'll give Stephen A. credit. He was honest, but how bad is it going to be when he's debating Magic Johnson or Tim Tebow? Token Tebow, as somebody called him on Twitter, because he's the one white guy they're going to have there. And I love Tim Tebow. He's a great American. But is he a great debater? It's a debate show with the loudest guy in the building, Stephen A. Someone like Tim Tebow can't handle that. That show's going to be Magic Johnson will be even worse.
Oh yeah,
they'll never disagree. There'll never be tension. I mean, they'll laugh. Magic's one of the great fake laughers of all time. He'll just be cackling. It will be terrible. Max, I was never a big fan of Max, but they will miss you. They will miss you, Max. But all right, what else we got?
I mean, we got tons of stuff we can get to, but
I know we got Rose McGowan. We could play that another day. Rose McGowan is such a great, I don't know, public speaker. She gets a little extreme, a little nuts, but she's working with Larry Elder. She told the story of Gavin Newsom's wife pressuring her to not press charges against Harvey Weinstein. It was great. She's articulate and smart and ruthless, and she's never, ever going to get over the cover-up that so many people took part in to help Harvey Weinstein. I hope Larry Elder wins, of course, and I hope we get to hear more from Rose McGowan, but I wouldn't want her coming after me.
No.
And she's, speaking of vicious, she is a tough woman, and she's coming after Gavin Newsom these next few days. Is it tomorrow? It is tomorrow. The recall is tomorrow.
Right?
The recall is tomorrow, yes.
Yeah.
We should try to get a hold of our guy, Dave Rubin, because he's been campaigning for Larry Elder, like hitting the road all around Southern California, campaigning for him. He's going to lose. Unfortunately, Gavin Newsom's going to maintain power, which will be too bad. But then again, we'll just continue to watch California slide into this abyss of decadence and chaos and filth, and we'll enjoy it. It's all on Gavin Newsom now. People had a chance to vote for Larry Elder. Maybe he pulls out the upset. Maybe they don't steal it. Maybe they don't, find a bunch of mail-in ballots and say, oh, look, all these people are against a recall. Maybe we win this. But if we don't, we'll just continue to watch California, decay, deteriorate, and rot and die, which will be fun. But did I miss anything important there, Carano? I know you got a lot of sound.
I mean, we had all that sound, from Stephen A. And even like the Hayes stuff on the drone strike.
Oh, that's right. That's a bad. I should have remembered that. The bad thing about the drone strike is Biden is used to being protected by the media, and he thinks even in a case where they kill 7 kids, he knows that most. I'm sure Yamichi and the rest have his back. They will circle the wagons. They will not report it. As we pointed out, they never reported when Biden pressured Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, to lie for him. Just never reported it, just ignored it completely. And they ignored this drone strike till they couldn't. And the New York Times had it. And Chris Hayes, who, by the way, has no viewers. Did you see the latest rating?
No, I didn't see that.
Chris Hayes and Joy Reid's ratings are in the tank. I mean, nobody's watching them, which is no surprise. Joy Reid is just insane. And Chris Hayes is kind of boring. But let me hear from Chris Hayes on the drone strike before we wrap this up.
And this reporting in the New York Times about the drone strike, after that bombing outside the Kabul airport, killed 13 U.S. service members, and we think about 140 Afghans. And we struck back saying this was ISIS, Khorasan, ISIS. And there's very good evidence that this was a driver, a longtime worker for a USAID group, killed 10, including 7 children, who was bringing water to his family. And I think about that haunting Barbara Lee line about the evil that we've experienced, the evil we oppose.
That would be evil when you're not only do we take out this family, and clearly, obviously, it's an accident, but the cover-up, immediately, it was a couple of ISIS guys with explosives. That's why the explosion was so big. They had a bunch of, vests or whatever, bombs, pipe bombs in the trunk. It was a big lie. I'm telling you, people are opening their eyes. Obviously, the people on the left want to protect Biden, but a lot of them, like we mentioned, Taibbi and Greenwald and Chris Hayes, are saying, holy crap, these people are evil, taking out a family and then saying, yeah, a couple of ISIS guys who did a job, did the trick. 7 children. I mean, I thought we were supposed to care about the children.
We are.
We do. Yeah. Just, if you don't have to admit you killed kids, I mean, I think they're getting a little bit of a rude awakening. People are waking up and saying, holy crap, we can't cover up this stuff forever. Eventually, we can't protect this buffoon who is talking about, sending Robert E. Lee into
He'll win.
sending Robert E. Lee into Afghanistan. If we have to go back, in, I hope we send
Resurrect
Robert E. Lee.
Robert.
Imagine if we have to go back and they're fighting from Bagram because they own it now, or they're fighting. We're fighting our own tanks and our own rifles and our own armored personnel carriers, and we're in a battle, and it's against guys using our stuff. Wow, that'll take an extra effort for the media to cover up, because already you've seen the videos come out of Afghanistan of them beating women that have their head scarves on incorrectly.
They cut off the head of a police officer.
Yeah, they cut off the head of some cop. They're tracking people down with the lists with the kill list that we gave them.
There's reports of them taking like 12, 13-year-old boys too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I didn't see
that's in that north where they're defeating that resistance, and they're taking boys out of the house and I don't know yet, killing them, or they're using them as soldiers or whatever. But it's going to get ugly, and maybe their UN ambassador, when he's living in New York, he can explain it all to us. He will be a wanted terrorist with a $10 million bounty on his head, but he'll be their UN rep, so maybe he'll explain to us all how the Taliban's coming along now that they're, what did they call them? Helpful partners?
Yeah.
Helpful partners of the Biden regime. But we will leave it there. That's the big announcement. We're on Locals. Come join us on Locals, locals.com. Any questions, direct them to
Yeah, you can just ask me. I'll help you if you have any problems. Just
message me. Ask Matt. He will answer your questions if you're trying to figure out how to get on there and what will be on there. There will be stuff on there every day, right? Stuff today?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. I look forward to it. I'm still, working my way, navigating my way through Locals, but I think it's going to be good. Good job, Carano.
Thank you.
I mean that sincerely. And the video you made was funny. I think everyone should watch it, and go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating, maybe a review. Talk about what a wonderful job Carano did on this video, but check it out. It's all over social media, but we will leave it there for today, this Monday. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Show with Carano, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.